Good afternoon, class. You are welcome to today's class. Before I start with today's one, let me quickly recall what we did last lecture on Tuesday. Let me just record that. Last time we met, we discussed about classes, and we discussed about classes and objects. And I said classes, they are the user-defined prototype or blueprints for creating objects. So, and we define the characteristics of a class that is the same thing as the attribute or properties and actions, and we discuss about the action, which is the method. So, we discuss about object too in classes. So, object, that is instances, is a unique occurrences created from a class. So object is a unique occurrences created from a class, and each object has its own unique storage for its attributes. So we just discuss again, we discuss the instantiation. Instantiation is the process of creating an object from a class. So we look at classes in Python and in PHP. So and I said Python, classes in Python, and I said Python is purely object-oriented language, that everything is treated as an object. So and I said classes are defined using the class keyword followed by a column and indentation. So we can see that in the example from the slides from the slide lecture. So and we discuss the attributes that is known as properties and or member variables. So class variable, and I told us we have two types of variable. We have class variable and instance variable. And I told us that class variable are shared by all instances. An instance variable belong only to specific instances. So we also discuss method as well. Method, they are function within a class that requires self as the first parameter to access instance properties. So an object are instantiated by calling the class name. So with the example of how we use the self as the first parameter, and now we use constructor, which is underscore int, to initialize properties upon instantiation. So and we discuss about classes in PHP as well, that PHP historically a procedural language and has been extended with OOP functions. And classes are defined using the class keyword. So classes are defined using the class keyword, the same thing as we use it in Python, we use it in PHP as well. They are defined using class keyword with the definition enclosed in curly brackets. So the difference is in that of the PHP, the definition is enclosed in curly brackets, and we can see it in the slide that the slide video the last time we discussed that. So we discussed our property too in PHP. They are the data variable within a class declared using $name var $name. And we discussed about methods too, as the function within a class in PHP. Accessing is a function within a class accessing properties via the $this variable, e.g. $this with the arrow pointing to var name. And we discuss about the object that are created using the new keyword, and we discuss about the constructor as well, which is the underscore cause initializing properties upon instantiation. So we'll be going to today's one, which we have inheritance, is the continuation of the lecture 6. We have inheritance, method overloading and overriding. So we start with inheritance. Inheritance, when we say inheritance, they refer to inheritance refer to deriving a new class with little or no modification to our existing class. So inheritance is the definition is about deriving a new class with little or no modification from our existing class. And is established by using is a type of relationship. So inheritance is a relationship between two or more classes where a derived class inherits property and method from a pre-existing class. So the pre-existing class, we have discussed that in introduction to Python. The pre-existing class, we call it superclass. They are the parent class. So it's always derived inherit property and method from the parent class. So, and that is the new class is based on the already existing class. So the new class is always based on the already existing class. And I told us that it's established using a type of relationship and hierarchy. So inheritance allows classes to be arranged in a type of relationship and hierarchy. So, and like this example now that is talking about the class big cat with the properties of the big class and the method for the big class, and we have the subclass, which is the class lion, that inherit from the big class. So the class lion inherits from the big class, and it has the properties and with the method. So with the method and the properties. So a lion is a type of relationship or hierarchy from the class big cat. So that's why it's always established is a type of relationship, is a type of relationship. So you take note of that, and it's a code, it helps to it promotes code reusability. Inheritance promote code reusability as the new class, that is the new class, maybe the new class like class lion that inherit from the big class. It promotes code reusability as the new class inherit properties and method from the existing class. The existing class from this example is the big class, big cat. So it's now the new class, which is lion, inherits properties and method from the existing class, that is the big cat. So we can see that lion are a type of big cat. So the lion class will include the properties of big class such as legs, speed, strength, and method, and such as so. And we have super class. Now we have discussed that in 201, that super class is also called base class or parent class, and whose property are inherited by another class. So super class that is also called base or parent class, they are the existing class whose property are inherited. And we have subclass as well, subclass which also called the derived class or child class. So they are the class that inherit property from the super class. So the new class, that which is the subclass, they inherit property from the super class, that is the parent class. So for example, like we have maybe a class vehicle as the parent class, the super class, it has a new class maybe like car. So it will inherit the properties or method. So as the maybe the name of the type name of the car, the vehicle type. So it will inherit the same properties and method from the superclass. That is for the subclass, the new class. So let's look at inheritance in Python majorly. We have two major means of implementing inheritance. First is the inheriting a class. That is the first means of implementing inheritance. And the second one is importing and inherit actual abstract classes. So we'll be looking at that. So first is for implementing inheritance is inheriting a class. So to inherit the property and method from another class, you include the parent class in a parenthesis when defining the child class. So when inherit a class, you include the parent class name in parenthesis. So we can see from the example class rectangle, so which is the class rectangle is the super class, that is the parent class. So the new class, which is the subclass, is the class square. So it's now you now enclose in parenthesis, you enclose the parent class which is the rectangle inside a parenthesis during the child class definition. So during the child class definition, you include the parent class name in parenthesis. Like we can see from the example here, class square. Class square is a new class. So the parenthesis, the bracket, rectangle, which is the parent class, which is the superclass, is being enclosed inside rectangle is being enclosed in parenthesis during the child class definition. So we have the class square rectangle as the example. So the square class contains all the properties and methods of the rectangle class. So the new class square class contains all the properties and methods of the super class, which is the rectangle class. So object instantiated using the square class can use this method and property like it belongs to it. So we can see from here and from rectangle for rectangle. So how the object instantiated using the square class that use the method and property that it belongs to. So we can see from the example. And also Python support multiple inheritance. We have taught that in 201 in introduction to Python programming. It supports multiple, that is inheriting from more than one parent class, and this is done by adding parent classes to the parentheses when defining the child class. So when we are defining the child class, there is a need for us to add the parent class to the parentheses. We can see from the same example, class rectangle as the parent class, and this new class, the subclass, which is the class polygon, and at the same time class square. I told you can inherit more than one parent class. So class polygon as the parent class, another parent class, which is for example for multiple inheritance. So class rectangle as the parent class, class polygon as the parent class. So class square, which is the new class, the subclass that is being derived from the parent class, which is the rectangle inside the parenthesis. So and the polygon, we have two parent class. I told you multiple inheritance can inherit more than one parent class. So here in this subclass, which is class square, we have more than one parent class inside the parenthesis. So we have the rectangle and the polygon. So inside the example, I study that code. So if an attribute is not found in the class square, it is searched in the first parent class. So if we didn't see the attribute for maybe like this class square from the example code we discussed finish. So if we didn't see the parent class, we didn't find the parent the attribute is not, or the attribute is not found in the class square. So we search the first parent class, which is the class rectangle. We search it. Then the second parent class as well. After we finish searching the first parent class, we search the second parent class. So with another means of implementing inheritance is importing and inherit abstract class. We discussed about the first one as inheriting a class. So the second one for implementing inheritance is importing and inheriting abstract class. So and importing and inheriting abstract class is using the ABC abstract base class. So the ABC means abstract base class. So Python did not support until recently Python did not support abstract classes. It changed with the ABC, that is abstract base class module, from the standard library. So an ABC, that is abstract base class modules allow you to enforce that a derived class implement a particular method using a special abstract method decorator. So on that method, so importing and inherit an abstract class using the ABC, that is abstract base class module, and it's used and is a derived that implement a particular method using a special actual method decorator to enforce method implementation in the derived classes. So it enforce method, the use of art, a special art actual method decorator enforces method implementation in the derived classes. The derived classes, which is the subclass. So, and we have inheritance in. So we want to look at, and this is the example of how they use the abstract method decorator in Python. So we can see how they use in the same code the class polygon and the class square inheriting from the parent class polygon. So we can study this. So and we have, so we'll be going to inheritance in PHP. So inheritance in PHP also provide 4 means of implementing inheritance. So it provides 4 means of implementing inheritance. Python inheritance in Python also provide 2 means of implementing inheritance, which is inheriting a class and importing and inheriting abstract classes. So that of the PHP provide 4 as well of implementing inheritance. So we'll be looking at them as well. Extending a class is the first thing. Extending a class. So to inherit the property and method from another class, use the extend keyword. So we using the extend keyword to inherit properties and method from a base class. So from a base class, that is from another class, which is the base class, use extend keyword in the class definition. So followed by the name of the base class. So let's see the example from the same code we have been looking at. Class rectangle, and which is the parent class, and the subclass. The subclass, which we have the class square, and I told us we use extend to inherit the property and method from another class. So we use extend as the to extend to inherit property and method from the parent class, which is the rectangle. So we use class square as the new class, extend rectangle, which is the which is another class. So and we have the dollar sign, this pointing to. So we and like in from the example with the square class contain all the properties and method of the rectangle class. So object instantiated using the square class can use this method and property like it belong to it. So when this square class that contain all the property and method of the rectangular class, so the object instantiated it can, so it's using the square class, it can be used, so it's use method and property from the rectangle class. The square can use method and property from the rectangle class since it belong to it from there. It belong to exactly, maybe it belong to the same class. So that's why it always inherits property and method of another class. So we can see the example again, the same example using first dollar sign, first square, new square, first square, or arrow set length. So another means of implementing inheritance in PHP is implementing an interface. So the first one is extending a class, where we have seen the code example of how to extend a class using extend keyword. So another one is implementing an interface, that is the define construct for classes using the interface and implement keyword. So now interface provide a way for defining construct to which a class adheres. So the interface provide method prototype and constant, and any class that implement the interface must provide implementation for all the method in the interface. So interface are defined using interface keyword. So we'll be looking at it from the example code, how interface are defined using interface keyword. And to declare that a class implement an interface include the implement keyword. So we'll be looking at how they define construct for classes using interface and implement keyword. So ensuring all interface methods are implemented. We have the example code of how they use interface polygon with the number of size and area. So and we have the class, the new class square implement. So we use implement keyword for the polygon. So the first class, which is the parent class, we use interface polygon in PHP. So and the second class, which is a new class, which is class square, we implement polygon. So we implement polygon. So and the square class must provide the code for the so the square class, which is the second class, that is the subclass, it must provide the code for the property and method defined in the interface it is implemented. So an interface may inherit from other interface, including multiple interface, as long as none of the interface is inherit from declared method with the same name as those declared in the child tree. So another one, I told us we have 4 means of implementing inheritance in PHP. So we have discussed about extending a class, and the second one is implementing an interface, and the third one is using trait. When we say trait provide a mechanism for reusing code outside of a class hierarchy. So and it is easily noticed that the class used in the sample code are related to each other in concept. That is, rectangle are related to square. A square is a type of polygon. So traits allow us to share functionality across different classes that don't share a common accessor in a class hierarchy. So that is the function of trait. Allow us to share functionality across different classes that don't share a common ancestor in a class hierarchy. So and we using the trait keyword. So to declare that a class should include a trait method, the use keyword is used and any number of traits separated by comma. So trait provide a mechanism for using code outside of a class hierarchy. So we declare using you declare trait using trait with a trait keyword and include with use keyword. So you take note of that. So a trait is defined using trait keyword, and to declare that a class should include a trait method, use keyword. So use keyword is used and any number of traits separated by comma. So we have the example of how we use trait keyword. So we have the example here. So and how we use as well. So we can see from here it's the same example with another. We use trait timer. So another example, class square, is how we use keyword. So I told us that we use when we want to include we include it, we use keyword. We include it, we use keyword. So we uses timer. It go back to the trait timer. So uses timer. So and we calculate the length, $sign length function using constructor underscore construct. So we studied the code example as well. We use the trait keyword and the use. So these methods are both defined by the timer trait are available to instances of the square class as if they were defined in that class. So traits can be composed of other traits by including the use statement in the trait declaration, followed by one or more trait names, trait names separated by comma. We can see from the code example we just finished. So the fourth means of implementing inheritance is extending abstract classes. Where we make use of that tool in Python, but the Python is inherit abstract classes. But in this one, extending abstract classes. So this is the fourth means of implementing inheritance. we say the first one is extending a class, where we have discussed that using the extend keyword. So, and we discuss implementing an interface using the interface and implement keyword, and we discuss about using trait, using with the trait and include with use keyword. So, and the fourth one is extending abstract classes. So PHP provide a mechanism for declaring that certain method of the class must be implemented by subclasses. That is, the implementation of those methods is not defined in the parent class. So we use abstract keyword. So it's done using abstract keyword. And this is different from interface in that some method in an abstract can be implemented. So we use abstract keyword in extending abstract classes. So abstract keyword for classes that have abstract method, that is, must be implemented by subclasses. So we use abstract keyword for classes that have abstract method, that is, it must be implemented by subclasses and cannot be instantiated directly. So it can't be instantiated directly. So you take also the example of the abstract, extending abstract. So using abstract keyword. So we have the parent class as the abstract class polygon with the number of size, area, and the abstract portion area. So we have calculate the portion with the portion. So, and we have the subclass as the class square. Implement, so we use the implement keyword. So we must implement by the subclass. So we have class square, implement polygon from the parent class, from the first class, from the parent class square, implement polygon. So we have the length and the portion for the square, the portion area. So the portion set number of sides can be used by object of class square, so without providing code for it. So abstract classes cannot be instantiated, I said it cannot be instantiated directly. So now we'll be looking at method overloading and overriding. So method overloading, that is tailoring behavior. Method overloading means to replace the parent method in the child class. So we define method overriding. Method overriding can be defined by replacing or declaring a parent class method in a child class. So you can as well replace the parent method in the child class, or you can declare parent class method in child class. So that is so the purpose of overriding is to change the specific behavior of an inherited method in the subclass. So the purpose of overriding, method overriding, is to change the behavior of your parent class method. And when a class or method and another class, that is the derived class, want the same method but with a different behavior, then using overriding you can completely change the behavior of base class or parent class. So let's see the example for method overriding. So like this example now, a lion class, this lion class, which is the subclass, that inherit from B class. So the lion class might override the method, that is the method under the lion, the class lion that inherit from B class. So the lion class might override the method auth. So that inherited from the B cat to define a lion unique authing style. So like this example now, a lion here that inherit from the big class, so it might override the auth method. The auth method from the method here we have raw pump by mark parity auth. So the lion might override the auth method inherited from the big cat, that is the parent class. So to define a lion unique authing style. So now we want to the way a lion hunts is different from the way other big cat hunts. So the way a lion will not hunt is different from the way other big cat hunts, but it's still the same. It's still inherited from big cat. So but it's just have a unique hunting style. So method overloading is creating method with the same name, but that is for method overloading. Method overloading is creating method with the same name but differ in the type of input parameter. In other words, the function are used to perform different tasks. It is assigning multiple implementation to the same function name. So method overloading is creating method with the same name, but it differ in the type or quality of input parameter. So that is for method overloading. So let's see the example here. The same example: lion class, lion inherit from big cat. Properties with the method. We have the method, and we have the from the method we have the hot zebra, hot hippopotamus, hot rabbit. So the way a lion hot a zebra is different from the way the lion hot a rabbit. So it's different, but even if both are still being hotted. So if like the way lion hot zebra is different from the way lion hot a rabbit, but both of it, they are the zebra and the rabbit and the hippopotamus, both of them, three of them, they are being hotted. They are still being hotted. So that is what we mean by method overloading. So that is what it means. So with the example, so method overriding is achieved by providing the implementation of the method in the child class. So we have not finished with the method overriding, so we'll be going back to the example, the same example code. So we have the class rectangle as the parent class, and the subclass, which is the child class, the class square. So inherit the method and property from the rectangle. So we can see from the new class square, inside the parentheses we have the rectangle. So and we define the perimeter. So we define the perimeter self and the self perimeter to calculate using and return the self perimeter. So the parent method can still be accessed by the child class by using the super keyword. So we use the super keyword when we want to when we want to access by the child class. So and Python does not explicitly support method overloading. So Python does not explicitly support method overloading. That is, it does not allow two methods to have the same name. That is for Python programming language. It does not allow two methods to have the same name. However, the same goal is achieved by using single dispatch generic function. So we have the example here: define area entity, and if entity equal to instances of rectangle dot notation area, and else if entity equal to the instances of the square, which is the second the subclass. So we square dot area, and the first class is the instances of rectangle. So we calculate the rectangle dot area. So now we want to look at PHP, the method overloading and method overriding in PHP. So PHP interpretation of overloading is different from most object-oriented languages. So overloading traditionally provides the ability to have multiple methods with the same name but different quantity and type of argument. So overloading in PHP Overloading in PHP is a similar functionality that can be achieved using the single dispatch generic function, so or by checking argument type. Okay, that is for Python. So to achieve overloading in Python you use single dispatch generic function, or by checking argument type or count within a single function. So but in PHP, interpretation differ from most OOP languages. In PHP, overloading provide means to dynamically create property and method via magic method. So we make use of magic method for creating property and method in PHP. So an overloading is primarily achieved using the core magic method. So we'll be looking at that. So overloading provide means to dynamically create property and method, and this dynamic entity are processed via magic method. I've said it earlier, using core magic method, and one can establish in a class for various action type. So PHP support the ability to call multiple methods with the same name for different quantity. So we can see for function underscore get underscore AGS. And another one is the ability, what PHP support is the ability to call multiple methods with the same name for different types. So with the same name for different types. So we have see internal use of get type in the method for references. So only variable can be passed by reference. You cannot manage a overloading for constant or variable detection. So that is we have discussed about what PHP support in overloading. So and what PHP does not support. PHP does not support the ability to declare multiple methods with the same name for different quantity. So and another thing that PHP does not support is the ability to declare multiple methods with the same name for different types. So we need to take note of what PHP support and what PHP do not support. So a method overloading is achieved by making a call to the magic method underscore call in a double quote. So the overloading is primarily achieved in PHP using the underscore call magic method, which is invoked when an inaccessible method is called. So it's invoked when an inaccessible method is called. So we can see the example of how we use this call magic method. So we have the class shape construct pi equal to 3.142 portion. So that's how we make use of the call keyword underscore call portion underscore call inside the bracket with all the variable classes. So we have using if conditional, say if $name equal to area switch count $argument. So we have in case 0 return 0, return self, return $argument. So now we need to take note that in method overloading having multiple methods with the same name for different parameters is achieved using the magic method. I've said it earlier. And this method is automatically invoked when you try to call a method that doesn't exist in the class. So it's achieved is invoked when you try to call a method that doesn't exist in the class. So like this example now, that when you call the circle with the arrow sign area from the previous example here, so the PHP first look for an area method in the shape class. So you can look for an area method in the shape class, and when it doesn't find one, so when you look for an area method in the shape class and it doesn't find one, it calls, it's now called using the underscore call area instead. So it calls by using the underscore call area instead. So when it doesn't find one, so and this call underscore call method, we check, the first thing check is that if there is 0 argument, return is 0. That's why the reason why we use case is 0, return is 0, meaning that if there are no argument, that is 0 argument, If there are zero argument, return 0. And like in this case one now, that return self, that if there are one argument, calculate circle. So you calculate the circle area, which is pi r square. So which we have the pi with the asterisk $sign argument. So with the argument of the 0, the one that return is 0, case is 0, with the $sign argument is 0. So if there are two arguments, that's why we have case 2. If there are two arguments, it calculates, that's why it return $sign argument is 0. The first argument, if the argument is 0, the asterisk argument 1, which is the case 1. So if there are two arguments, calculate the rectangle, that is the argument is 0, rectangle area. So it calculate the rectangle area, which is length asterisk width. So that is how the code run. So we have this the $sign circle with the new shape, and we print output echo area of circle, and with the $sign rect equal to the new shape, we output echo area of rectangle. So that's how we generate the output. So method overriding in PHP is achieved by providing the implementation of the method in the child class. So we'll be using the same code as the class rectangle as the parent class. So they have the function perimeter. So and return the $6 arrow perimeter. So we have the class square extend rectangle, which is the subclass. So and we have the $sign this length equal to $sign this breadth, function perimeter. So we calculate the perimeter for the variable class. So now what this is telling us is that it's like this the classes, the block, the square extend rectangle. So this square, the class square extend rectangle, that is meaning that it inherits all properties and method from the rectangle, which is a superclass. So it inherits the method and properties from the rectangle. So I now override the method. So both classes have a perimeter method. So we can see from the first class, which is a class rectangle. So the both class have a perimeter method and the class square. So and we can see that the square class provides its own version of perimeter. So it provides its own version, the square class provides its own version of perimeter. So but different implementation. So we have the rectangle formula, so that have 2 times the length and length plus breadth inside the bracket, and we have the square formula to be called asterisk length, since all sides are equal. So when you call perimeter on a rectangle object, it uses rectangle version, and when you call perimeter on a square object, it uses square version instead of the inherited one. So you can go and study the code example under overriding method. And as well, we can see that method overriding allows square to provide from this programming code. Method overriding allows square to provide its own optimized calculation for perimeter, where still maintaining the is a relationship with rectangle. So you can take note of that. I'll be ending the class for today.